This is the second video for CAM project number 1, which is this nameplate. Now, in the first video, we created this in the design workspace. Now we're going to go to the manufacture workspace, where we're going to create essentially the tool paths and all the information the CNC machine needs to cut this out. So the first thing we want to do when we get here is to create a setup. So you can do that a couple different ways. Click this button. I usually use my browser. I'm going to create a new setup. Now what this is essentially doing is telling the computer the parameters of this program. We're going to be using a three-dimensional or a standard 3D. This is actually the machine I have at home, but it's essentially a generic 3-axis um, machine, and you can use the Autodesk variant here. That's fine. So 3-axis X, Y, Z. The next one is milling, which that's our operation, so we leave that. And this is a really, really important one. The work coordinate system is how you orient your project with the CNC machine. So the CNC machine knows how you're going to load this piece of wood and where zero is. So you can imagine if you set your zero wrong, you're going to be probably cutting a lot of air or cutting a lot of piece of wood that you don't want to. So this is actually really critical. And if you take time to do this right, then it should be correct for all your follow-on machining operations, which, let's just face it, that's going to save you time. All right, so for orientation, I like to use select X and Y axes. This is a lot of this is preference and information available, but I almost always have an X and Y axis to select. So I'm going to do that. Now, what lights up here is X axis. So I'm going to choose, and X, if you remember, is pretty much your left and right. If you're standing in front of the machine, X is moving left and right, Y is moving towards you and away from you, and Z is moving up and down, or it's your third dimension. So I'm going to select something to indicate my X axis, and this line's probably the easiest. Then after I select that, it asks for Y axis. So Y is actually this one right here. Okay. Now, if we notice, the Y is actually kind of facing the wrong direction. I want my zero in this corner because I want all my operations to be in the positive quadrant. So what I can do is I can click this box to flip the Y-axis. And now if I look, my orientation of X, Y, and Z is actually perfect. The only problem now is I need to change the point at which it sits. So instead of, for stock box point, I'm going to select this corner of the material, and I always want to select the top corner, the very top corner. So that's going to be my zero for the operations going forward. For your model, once you click the body, it'll highlight essentially what you're going to be machining. We're going to leave fixture undone right now. It's a little bit more advanced. So we're going to go to the next tab. Everything in the CAM area or the manufacturer area works through menus that look very similar to this and through these tabs in the menus. Make sure that you go through all the tabs before you click OK, or you're going to have to go back and change it. Now for stock, if you remember, we started with a piece of stock that was exactly the right size. So we need to make sure, what I usually do is create a fixed size box. There's a whole bunch of things here you can play with, but I like fixed size because I know the piece of wood that I'm loading into the machine, and so will you when you're using CNC machines in our lab. Okay, so the width is 11. Position center is fine. That's okay, and because actually it's already starting at the right size, and it's just going to take off the corners for the most part on the contour. So 11 by 2.5. Height is actually 0.75, and it should start at the bottom of the piece and go right to the top of the letters, which it seems to just fine, so that actually looks good. Every program should have a 4-digit code. If this is your first CAM project, then it's very appropriate to name it 1001. You could name it 001 or 3 zeros and a 1, totally up to you, but it's really easier to juggle if you have a unique identifier for each program. And even put a comment down here. You can put CAM, or how about nameplate? How about raised nameplate? or cam number 1. Make it easy here. I'm going to leave machine WCS alone, but this is as well how we want to start our setup. Now the setup actually goes right here, and then all the programs that we start to machine actually will read that setup. All right. So go ahead and watch the next video. It's going to show you how to start creating toolpaths. There's a lot of different options here. If we're drilling, there's even options for that as well. So this video was about creating this new setup. The next ones will show you how to create operations.